In the sleepy town of Widnes, Cheshire, a man operated in silence. He wasn't flashy. He didn't need to be. Paul Green, known in the underworld as the Big Fella, quietly constructed a drug empire worth over £7 billion. And for a decade, nobody noticed. Paul Green was no corner dealer. He was a logistics genius. His model? Smuggled drugs hidden in cargo, masked by the scent of onions, garlic, and ginger, thousands of tons a month arriving from the Netherlands like clockwork. Front companies were created, legitimate hauliers were duped. And through it all, Green and his associates remained invisible. Paul Green didn't work alone. His right-hand man, Stephen Martin, managed finances. Mohammed Ovais ran logistics in Manchester. Dutch associates handled overseas operations. They charged rival gangs to use their pipeline. They weren't just criminals, they were service providers in a black market economy. This unassuming warehouse in Sheffield was one of several key delivery points for Green's operation. Officially, it was registered as Irinka Foods Limited, but in reality, it was nothing more than a front. The gang set up multiple fake companies like this, some even VAT registered, giving them a facade of legitimacy. The deception ran so deep, even the lorry drivers had no idea they were transporting drugs hidden in crates of produce. The scale was staggering. At one point, the gang had stockpiled so many onions that they couldn't offload them fast enough, and ended up exporting their own rotting vegetables back so they could reuse them in other importation plans. But eventually, the operation hit a snag. One Dutch driver grew suspicious, and instead of completing his delivery, returned the cargo to the depot. Inside, police discovered 8 kilograms of cocaine. The drugs weren't loosely packed, they were wrapped in branded packaging. Investigators later uncovered that the labels weren't just decorative, they were coded signals used to identify which dealer each package was destined for. It was a criminal distribution system as precise as any legitimate supply chain. Unfazed by the previous missing shipment, a month later, Green's operation made another high-stakes move, attempting to smuggle 57 kilograms of amphetamine, valued at over £1.1 million, from the Netherlands to the UK. But by now, Dutch authorities had the gang under surveillance. They were intercepting calls, tracking movements, and closing in. Russell Leonard, a 47-year-old gang enforcer from Kirkby, Merseyside, fluent in Dutch and usually tasked with packing drugs in the Netherlands, was put in charge of the shipment, alongside another man whose identity remains protected for legal reasons. The two had strict instructions: deliver the van and guard it at all costs. Instead, they went drinking all night, leaving the van and the multi-million-pound load completely unguarded in a quiet suburb of Amsterdam. In a recorded call, a furious Paul Green can be heard threatening one of them. If the van's gone or been grabbed by the police, then there'll be f***ing murders. By morning, the men returned, got into the van, and attempted to drive off, but it was too late. Dutch police were waiting. They were arrested on the spot. Leonard was later sentenced to 24 years in prison. In 2017, the gang expanded its network, recruiting 3 new men to help develop an alternative transport route into the UK. They partnered with a Dutch criminal group led by 2 key figures, both of whom would later be extradited and sentenced to a combined 38 years in prison. As the months passed, and cooperation between the UK's National Crime Agency and Dutch authorities intensified, the true scale of the operation began to emerge. Tons of drugs, millions in profit, and a distribution network stretching across Europe. With the pieces finally falling into place, investigators turned their sights on the man at the top. It was time to bring down Paul Green.
The knock on the door that brought down a drugs empire.
Police, open the door.
This was the ringleader, Paul Green. but he led a double life. On the surface, a family man living the quiet suburban life in Cheshire. In fact, he was running the biggest drug trafficking gang ever detected in the UK. So big, Green was a wholesale supplier for Britain's drug dealers.
The National Crime Agency has hailed its success in convicting 18 members of an international gang which smuggled in billions of pounds worth of drugs into the country. The NCA says it is the UK's biggest ever drugs investigation. The gang smuggled around 50 tonnes of heroin, cocaine and cannabis into the country, which was distributed from southeast England to Scotland. 2 criminal trials were needed to try the defendants. Now, the judge who presided over them said the drug smuggling was an industrial and hitherto unprecedented scale.
This footage captures one of their shipments being loaded onto lorries in Holland. It was a hallmark of Green's gang to cover their drugs with strong-smelling food like onions, to throw sniffer dogs off the scent as the product was moved to the UK. This warehouse in Sheffield is one of the locations Green's gang used to get their shipments in. It was called Irenka Foods, but that was just one of many fake business fronts they had. Some were even VAT registered to give an air of legitimacy. So even the lorry drivers had no idea they were being used as drug mules. Having built the case, the NCA went after Green's gang one by one.
Last chance, open the door!
You could compare it to a multinational company.
The head of this investigation said even he was shocked to uncover the full extent of Green's operation.
We have dismantled one of, if not the largest, organised crime group involved in Class A distribution into all 4 corners of the United Kingdom. There is no doubt that if you have witnessed the harm in your communities that the drug dealing causes and drug addiction, that some of these drugs will have stemmed from Paul Green and his organised crime group.
The judge in this case said it was drug smuggling on an industrial and until now unprecedented scale for Britain. Paul Green has been sentenced to 32 years in prison. He will likely spend the rest of his life behind bars.
Paul Green's downfall proves a powerful truth. No matter how vast the empire or how carefully it's built, no criminal operation is beyond untouchable. In the end, even £7 billion couldn't shield him from spending the rest of his days in a prison cell.